Welcome, everybody, to Watch Diary. My name is Ryan Snelling. I've got a treat for you guys today, but before I get to that treat, another treat. A lesser than treat. 30-day free trial of Audible. Just scan that QR code right there. If you're watching on YouTube, pick up your camera on your phone, scan it, 30-day free trial on me. Or if you're listening to this podcast, go to the link in the description down below. audibletrial.com/rewatch. Not rewatch, Ryan. Rewatch. And get that trial of Audible. And maybe you'll pick up some J.R.R. Tolkien. The other treat. The greater than treat. That was his nickname in high school. The greater than Brando Hall is with me for the entire duration of the show. How are you, sir?
I'm stoked. My life sucks.
Oh,
no, it's great. So our air conditioning went out this week.
Yeah.
And I was just telling you about it off air, but now we're going to have the conversation like I didn't.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm going to react like I've never heard this before.
Yeah, exactly the way you did, so with all the swearing. So when we were sitting here watching House of the Dragon, Hot D, and we were just sitting here watching Hot D, and then all of a sudden, it was like Tuesday night, we started smelling. Have you ever had like... Well, I was going to say like a hair dryer, but obviously you haven't.
Hair straightener?
Okay, a hair straightener overheat.
No, but I mean, I can imagine what that's like.
So if you've ever had like something mechanical or electrical overheat, there's a smell that's unmistakable, and it's awful. So we're just sitting there watching Hot D, and then all of a sudden Lulu's like, "Do you smell that?"
And then you were like, "Dragon fire."
Yeah, so... I pop up, well, I wouldn't say pop up, but I got up and searched around the house for the source of the smell. Couldn't find it. Seemed like it was coming from everywhere. So, of course, I do what I do. I call my dad. I'm like, "Dad, come over and smell this." It's like 10 o'clock at night. Dad's like, "Well, have you checked blah, blah, blah? Check the outlets. Go outside and look at your air conditioning unit, blah, blah, blah." So we did all that. Couldn't find it. Dad comes over. We do the exact same thing I just did.
Yeah.
But in front of him. And he seemed satisfied. He's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what it could be." We were making popcorn. So he's like,
"What? As you're doing this, is the smell still occurring, or was it like a moment and it's lingering now?"
No, it was lingering, and it smelled worse in Elvis's room, my youngest. And so I'm nervous that he put like a fork in the outlet or something. So we checked all the outlets. He's asleep. Nothing in there. But the smell in his room was the worst because his door was closed. So come to find out, our AC unit, like the control board, burnt up. We don't know why, but it burnt up, and so it has to be replaced. So it's like 84 degrees in my house right now. It's miserable. But we have the greatest landlord ever. She brought over 2 window units. And to get us through until the part comes in. But I got to tell you, when I'm like, as a big guy, I don't know how you handle heat. You live in Arizona, so probably pretty well. But I don't handle heat well because I'm cranky, I'm smelly, and I'm just generally way worse of a person when it's hot outside.
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like 80 degrees all the time in my apartment, just based on like what it takes to get cool in Arizona is different than what it takes to get cool in Kentucky. So like we literally keep our thermostat around like 77. Right now it's on 75 because I can't have my fan on while I'm recording, obviously. But this is where I'm most comfortable. And they kind of advise not to do it below 75. That way it doesn't overwork your AC out here. So that's...
Wait a minute.
What?
Your house is always at 77 to 75?
It's at 75 because I have my door closed and my fan is off. When I'm done recording with you, I will put it back to 77, and that is our room temperature.
That is awful.
Well, it's not the same as what your 77 is. That's my point. But
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it does.
77 degrees is 77 degrees no matter where you are.
Not if it's more stuffy where you are, Brando.
What do you...
Brando.
Am I taking crazy pills right now?
The Kentucky air is a lot more humid. So
if you say humidity, I'm gonna kill myself.
I'm just saying it's just a different sensation, if that helps you.
There's no way that's true.
Plus, I'm used to over 100 degrees, so surely to God, I take 77 better as an Arizonian than you take 77 as a Kentuckian.
When we were at your house,
Because it's like sweet
sitting around a
relief in the
campfire.
70s here.
when we were sitting around a campfire, and were you comfortable or were you hot or cold?
You know what's weird? Is like heat also affects me differently indoors than it does outdoors. Like,
See, this is a you thing. This isn't an Arizona thing.
like
This is a
it's
Ryan
really
Snelling thing.
it's really uncomfortable if I'm hot inside of a place. But if I'm outside and it's hot, I'd think less of it because I'm like more accepting that this is what it should be like, if that makes sense.
So it's 77 degrees in your house at night. Are
Yeah.
you under covers? Do you sleep with just a sheet?
I've got one quilt here that I use right now for soundproofing, and I have my fan on. And it's fine.
Yeah, I don't.
Look, I have to empathize. I don't want the focus to be on me and the fact that I can take heat better than you. Let's go back to empathy. Let's go back to the fact that no matter what, your situation sucks. How about that?
It does. And like we only have 2 units that are at best are going to cool down 150 square feet.
Right.
Now, we have a ranch style house, 1 floor, 1 story. So we're going to have to move these things multiple times, like into the kids' room. They're going to have to sleep in the same room, and we'll give them one. Or I could just be the worst dad in the world and put both of these in my bedroom
Yeah, you can be.
and make the kids suffer because they're young.
Well, just
resilient.
tell them that Ryan Snelling said that they can take the heat better than their dad can, so they can.
So true. So true. But yeah, so that's what's going on right now. My wife's been sick, and so I set one up in there, and I don't think she was thankful enough. Like, I set it up in there for her, and I didn't get, oh my God, thank you so much.
Put her on with me. I'll have a talk with her.
No, she's wonderful. She just, when she doesn't feel good, I just feel like I need more praise in life in general from her for, just how lucky she is
That's right.
to get to see my naked body.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't cancel on the show entirely, because I was about to bring up, I think David Bell asked at some point, or maybe it was Ben Brasso, who was like, man, I think I missed the episode where we found out why Brando's just cameraless. So I was literally going to sit down and ask when you were going to get your camera fixed, and I'm sure it's going to be right before you fix the AC in your house. So there's that. This is a conversation I want to have with my viewers, but also with you. This is why you are so valuable to what we do around here on this YouTube channel podcast. Your perspective is just... So I started collecting 4K Blu-rays. And this is right after I bought a PS5. So now I have a physical player. And I'm working through this because I'm a minimalist, guys. Like, up until this point, I had a huge Blu-ray collection, a huge DVD collection back in the day. Like, it was very extensive. And then I just kind of obtained this, like, minimalist mentality where I got rid of all of them except for just a couple. And I still have them. I have them right beside me here today. I, for some reason, left a couple of Blu-rays that I couldn't let go of, and I cannot wait for you to see this collection.
Okay.
The Blu-rays that made it through the Great Merge. Yeah, the snap. All right. It's hilarious. Even I got a kick out of looking at them, okay? So, guys, I have my remaining Blu-ray collection that is several years old. I have the 2 4K Blu-rays that I bought. The second 4K came out, and I just, because I become a minimalist already, I didn't continue to collect 4Ks. And then I have the new 4Ks that I've collected in the past week or so, now that I have a 4K player. So there's 3 tiers, and I want to reveal them to you and our audience, and I want to get your take.
Okay.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
What do you want to do first? Do you want to see the Blu-rays that survived the purge? Do you want to see the 2 4Ks that I bought?
Start with the oldest.
Start with the oldest. Okay, so guys, again, the Great Purge. I don't know what the timeline is. I started collecting Blu-rays when I worked at Blockbuster, so that was what 10, 11 years ago. And then I probably purged them right before 4K existed, because it was probably because like they announced 4K was coming out, and I probably just gave up because I had put so much effort into buying Blu-rays. I didn't want to start over with 4K. So it was probably about that time. So here are. Let's start with this Blu-ray. You ready? And sorry, all the images, guys, are going to be in reversed. I apologize because my camera is flipped. You ready?
So ready.
Number 1. The Recruit, starring Colin Farrell and Al Pacino. There it is.
I had no clue that was gonna. That made the snap. Wow.
Listen, this embodies one of the greatest eras in cinema history, which is early 2000s Colin Farrell. And this is like exactly the kind of thing that newly minted teenage Ryan Snelling would go after. And for some reason, I just really like this movie. Colin Farrell, he's just cool. I literally watch this movie because Colin Farrell is cool. All right.
How many times have you stood in front of the mirror and said lines from Colin Farrell in that movie? Shirtless.
You know, I'm trying to think of some lines right now. I guess none, but I can think of a lot of scenes. There's a particular torture scene that I find effective. Anyway, Al Pacino, great, very entertaining, cool movie. By the way,
Never seen it.
I just want to give you some insight. I don't want to spoil the titles, but there's only like 5 more. So The Recruit is one of 5 Blu-ray.
That's insane to me.
You ready?
Yeah.
X-Men First Class. See, this makes more sense, right? This is my favorite.
Okay.
This is my favorite X-Men movie. There's the behind-the-scenes documentary on here is excellent, and they have Henry Jackman on, and he kind of like walks through the creation of the score, and then it's one of the few times I care about movie music.
Hugh Jackman.
No, Henry Jackman, the composer.
His brother.
Yeah. So anyway, and he talks about creating the Magneto theme, and anyway, one of my favorite movies. That makes more sense. Here we go.
Sure.
Super 8, another movie that makes sense.
sense.
And it also has an incredible behind the scenes that I just can't get rid of. I will upgrade to 4K eventually for this, but it's got great behind the scenes footage, so I wasn't ready to let go of that yet. Again, the image is reversed, so maybe it'll take you a second, but you ready?
Really?
I was obsessed with this era of him getting kicked off the Tonight Show.
Conan O'Brien, everyone.
Yeah. I was obsessed with him getting kicked off the Tonight Show and all the Jay Leno stuff. So this documents when he hit the road right after all that. So it's just a fascinating documentary.
Incredible.
Okay, this is one of my prized possessions. Wait. Something's wrong. Oh, wait, no, it's not. This is just a weirdly packaged. Anyway, one of my prized possessions. These were childhood movies that I watched. Finally, they were available in a collection. It's the Bruce Lee collection. Every Chinese film that he made. So not Enter the Dragon. But I've got them on Blu-ray. And,
okay.
They're not great movies, but I love watching Bruce Lee. All right, finally, I've got 2 more collections.
For everyone that can't see, this is Geely.
I just realized. Thank you for doing that. I forgot I'm on a podcast. Guys, the first one was The Recruit, X-Men First Class, Conan O'Brien Can't Stop, the Bruce Lee Collection, and Super 8. Thank you for doing that. Anyway, guys, it's the Tom Cruise Blu-ray collection. How do you feel about me owning this? So,
I mean, it makes sense.
So it's got Top Gun, Collateral, Minority Report, War of the Worlds, and Days of Thunder. So, fun fact, I have never seen Days of Thunder.
Me neither. NASCAR, it's boring. Okay?
Top Gun, I don't think it's aged well. I don't think it's that good. But Collateral, Minority Report, and War of the Worlds. Not only
is Collateral the one with Jamie Foxx?
It is.
That is a great movie.
It is. And what's crazy is that Collateral, Minority Report, and War of the Worlds, they're not just like my favorite Tom Cruise movies. They are 3 of my all-time favorite movies.
I think Tom Cruise is more attractive in Collateral than any other movie, except
right.
maybe like, what was that movie called with Robert Downey Jr. who plays? He's
Tropic
in
Thunder?
blackface. Yes,
Yeah.
that movie.
So I can't part with this because, first of all, I just love that I have this and that it exists. But, and I think pretty much all of these have come out on 4K, but I don't want to part with War of the Worlds quite yet. I have War of the Worlds in 4K on Vudu, but some of the coloring in a lot of the scenes is terrible. Like, all of a sudden, like, you'll just see a splotch on Tom Cruise's face, like a gray splotch, like there's no color. Like there's missing data. It's a terrible transfer, the 4K. At least streaming on Vudu. I haven't seen it on disc, but... So I'm going to keep that version, because I'm not a big fan of the way they colored it. And then finally, I have just Lord of the Rings, Theatrical, Motion Picture Trilogy.
Great.
So if you just saw these titles on a shelf, how would you judge that person?
It's basic.
You think
I
so?
would think this is a basic person's. Honestly, I expected better from you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm almost guaranteeing that you at one time had a massive DVD collection, just normal DVD.
I had a huge DVD collection, and then I got a high off of updating those DVDs into Blu-rays. When Blu-ray started taking over, I was like, oh, this is the best. And then, because then they put out, like, the collections and stuff like that, like with the Lord of the Rings and the Tom Cruise, like, you could go sifting through a Walmart bin and find that Tom Cruise collection or a Christopher Nolan collection. It's like, what is this? This is incredible.
So
Great times.
So for me, I've given away almost every DVD or Blu-ray I've ever owned
Yeah.
to a family who, my sister at a time didn't have cable. So they've got a lot of our DVDs. The things I own now that are Blu-ray or DVD are, I'm looking at them. They're on the shelf. You can't see. I have Arrested Development seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah.
I have Kung Pao Enter the Fist. I have Goodfellas. I have The Godfather 1 and 2. 3 doesn't exist. And The Sandlot.
We should. I'm gonna make a graphic and side by side our Blu-ray collections, and everybody can vote on whose is worse.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. What else do you want to see? We got 10 minutes on the Zoom call, by the way. Do you want to see the 2 4Ks that I had before I started buying 4Ks again?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got Arrival. Here's number 1, which is
Good movie.
great movie. And then we got Batman v Superman.
Gross. Why do you own that?
Well, because I love Batfleck. There's parts of a really great movie. In this. But it's just good looking. It really is. It's a good looking movie.
Who, Gal Gadot?
All of them.
Just Gal Gadot.
All right. So that's all I had in 4K for years. I mean, think about it.
Amazing.
That was a 2016 release. That was a 2017 release. My Vudu collection. It's grown extensively. It's over 300 movies.
Yeah.
So I've been perfectly content. Are you ready to see my newfound obsession?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. This is newly purchased last night, and I can't wait to see your reaction. I don't know if you've seen this movie.
Hold on. How many are there?
I have 6 things I'm going to show you, but
Okay, hold on.
There's 2 collections. What you got?
How much were each of these?
Oh, I don't know.
Like $20 a piece?
All of them are more than that.
Okay, so hold on. So I want to get a price for what you spent last night on physical media.
Yesterday alone, I spent $150. Now let me walk you through this. All right, this is important.
Okay.
I'm glad you called me out because I don't want to build an extensive collection. I want there to be a rhyme and a reason as to why I feel compelled to buy something.
Okay.
And so I want it to be a disciplined. So I think it really comes down to titles that either mean a lot to me personally, that have some sort of like cool collector value to it, or a collection where I am getting something of value and like a lot of things that I love are together. For example, let's start here, okay? I've been looking after this for a few weeks now. It's the Lord of the Rings trilogy, extended and theatrical on 4K disc. So this is like 9 discs in this box set. All right? Now, let's talk about my discipline. Could I have bought the entire Middle-earth saga, including the Hobbits, and doubled the price? Yes. But I don't give a shit about those movies, and I will never, ever rewatch them again.
Yeah, they're not great.
So there's part of my discipline. It has to truly mean something to me or truly have some sort of value to have on disc, because I know that this is going to probably last me for the rest of my life and I will never need to buy this again. How do you feel about that idea?
You already own it on Blu-ray.
That's right.
In high def on Blu-ray.
Well, this is 4 times the resolution of Blu-ray disc, but sure.
And you own it on Vudu as well.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about how you own the same movie
Yeah.
3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you owned those movies on either DVD or Blu-ray at some point.
And you could also argue that they kind of just exist on streaming, too.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't
Right
help
now,
my case.
they're all available on HBO Now.
Yeah.
Which you pay for as well.
That's right.
Incredible.
But that trilogy is super important. So let's keep diving into this. I'll show you another collection. You ready?
Yep.
This, I think it'll make you feel better because I only own this on digital. And then you could argue that it's on streaming. But I don't own another physical copy. Are you ready? And it's a collection that I didn't even know was packaged. And then I saw that it was packaged. And I was like, wait, what? I have to own this. It is the Kelvin Timeline Star Trek movies.
I don't know what that means.
It's the J.J. Abrams series, the trilogy.
Okay.
And I love the first movie. I like the second movie a lot. I like Into Darkness a lot. And Beyond is fine. But they're also pretty movies to watch. So the second I saw this collected, I was like, gotta have it. Come on.
Never seen them.
You've never seen
I
the
saw
J.J.
the first one.
You've never seen the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies.
No, I've seen the first one. It's fine.
Well, I don't have any loyalty to this franchise. That's why I can take this down a whole hell of a lot better than Star Trek fans that hate J.J. Abrams with a passion. Yeah. So
they're stupid.
I can swallow this a lot easier. And plus, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, these are better Star Wars movies than the Disney sequel trilogy. How do you feel about that?
Disagree, but I've not seen them, so.
I
Whatever.
disagree, but I have not seen them, so
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Fake news.
All right, I bought this yesterday. You ready? I'm excited to show you this because I just want you to be like, what the hell? This is a 4K Steelbook of Hacksaw Ridge, and it's beautiful. Look at the slipcover. See, this is the other thing, too. I like the idea of having Steelbooks. And do you know the story behind this movie and me?
No.
So
did you tell a girl you wouldn't make out with her during it?
No. Instead, what I did was cry in my aunt and mother's arms for several minutes after watching this film. And also cried in the car on the way home. And I was 27.
I probably cried at that movie, but I don't remember.
I have a video on, I think, this channel. I think we were doing Sight and Sound. So it was like 2017, I think. And I talked about how this movie made me feel. And it was just such a memorable experience that I'll carry it with me for the rest of my life.
Wow.
The Batman.
The Batman.
Yeah, 4K Steelbook.
Okay, HBO Now right now.
You like that?
Sure.
And now I own it. 4K Steelbook. Watch all the special
I
features.
can't wait. I cannot wait until you sell all these at a pawn shop for like $3.
All right, we got 2 more, and then this segment will be over.
Okay.
Warrior, 4K Steelbook, Best Buy exclusive. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah, and I'm wondering why.
What do you mean, why? This is like one of my favorite movies. I think maybe the best fighting movie. And that includes boxing.
That's Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton, right?
Yes, and it's also some of the best acting I've ever seen on screen.
Okay.
It's very emotional, so well acted. I think they crushed it. You don't. You need to rewatch that movie.
I do need to. I watched it with my dad, and I was like, I don't know.
Well,
it was weird.
You should watch that movie.
Okay.
All right, last one. You ready? All timer. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 4K Steelbook. And this is another example of my discipline. You ready? Because this 4K set could come out in Steelbook. I think it is out. I think there is a 4K Steelbook set. But this is the one I rewatch all the time, even though I like them all. I rewatch this one more than any of them, and I don't need Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And also, why would I buy a collection when they're just about to come out with a 5th Indiana Jones movie?
Yeah, you'll get an extra $1 for the Steelbook, in a few years when you pawn them.
I feel like you're not excited for me.
I'm not. Physical media is dead. I don't understand. I mean, I'm glad you have I have the Arrested Development ones because I bought them when the show was an indie darling, but no one really cared. So I thought it would go away. Yeah, so that's why I have it. Raiders of the Lost Ark isn't going anywhere ever. It's always going to be available online forever. So the fact that you bought a Steelbook,
Come on. All of this, by the way, on the heels of me binging Hoarders. I don't really know what that says about me. I don't know. I thought it would make me more of a minimalist, but apparently
I like to watch my 600-pound life while I eat. So
are you saying I'm an aspiring hoarder?
I hope not. I mean, you got to be kind of successful to be a hoarder. Like you gotta, have some means to get stuff. And
I don't think that that's true at all. If you watch some of these episodes, all I have to do is go right outside and take everything that this entire apartment complex has thrown out in that dumpster and just bring it into my apartment and let it sit with me on the couch.
Now that's a show. Yeah. Okay. What was the name of the Colin Farrell movie again? I've already forgot because it's so nothing.
The Recruit.
It's such a Ryan Snelling thing that you have that movie because it's nothing. You're literally the only person I have ever heard talk about that movie.
Hey, you know what? First of all, Shields, when he used to be on this podcast, he used to talk about The Recruit with me. So there's that. Second of all, I feel like The Recruit speaks to what you want me to do. You talked about how I bought things that I already have a lot of copies of or that will exist forever. The Recruit? You think we can find that on a streaming service right now?
Oh, I bet. Probably on something like Tubi. Or, one of those terrible streaming services.
I'm talking about the ones that count. I will look this up real quick because I need to end on this note. That way I don't feel ashamed. And
what was comedians at Crackle? I bet it's on Crackle right now.
Son of a bitch. The Recruit's on Prime Video.
Of course it is.
Speaking of Prime Video.
What a segue.
Speaking of your image right there being one of the characters of Lord of the Rings of Power that I don't know their name of, we are here to discuss the premiere event, the first 2 episodes with spoilers of Lord of the Rings of Power. And I feel like we can get right into it with this one question. You ready?
Let's go.
Can you imagine recapping this show every single week with me?
I don't know.
Is that something that you can commit to in your life?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to watch them all.
All right. Keep going.
Now, do they deserve it?
Keep going.
That's a question that we'll get into. But, yeah, I mean, this is a premiere show. It's Amazon. And boy, did they spend the money to make this thing look incredible.
Oh my god. So give me some I'm sorry to cut you off. Give me some insight real quick into what your streaming, your home entertainment setup is like. Do you have a 4K television? Do you have HDR? Are you streaming is this
I have
wired
4K
up? Is this
TV.
Wi-Fi, smart TV? Give me the whole
Okay.
rundown so the viewers know what you're speaking to in terms of the quality of this content.
Gotcha. I am watching on a 65-inch TCL 4K TV,
Okay.
smart TV, Roku TV. I'm watching on Amazon Prime, obviously, and I have surround sound and a sub in my place,
Nice.
and yeah, it's just I sit in my chair right in front of my recliner, right in front of the TV, and get a drink. Usually Mio, big fan of Mio. And I watch with the TV turned up way too loud for anybody else. And that's how I watch it.
So I gave this show an accolade and tweeted about it. I think it is hands down the best looking piece of content that I've ever seen via stream ever in my life.
I could not agree more. I thought that this made House of the Dragon look like Xena Warrior Princess. Just in terms of the cinematography and the CG. Like, I thought the creatures in this, that I was so into it, I could not tell they weren't really there. Like, it's so good. And the cinematography is so good.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. I love the way that it's colored. I love the way that it's lit.
Yeah.
But it's just sharp. Like when I saw a couple of the very first shots of Galadriel, and the fact that I could see pores on her forehead and her wrinkles, and I'm just like, there's always some sort of compression, or the bit rate is just a fraction of what it could be based on the fact that it's streaming and I'm private. None of that mattered. I mean, it literally looked like I was watching a 4K disc, and I couldn't believe it. And I have no choice but to compare it to House of the Dragon, or even She-Hulk that I watched earlier in that day, which Rings of Power would benefit from. And it just, I couldn't believe it. And no matter what we're going to say about the characters or the story, it just makes me feel like I have to watch it, because I feel like I have to witness like a pivotal point in streaming television. Like I feel like I'm gonna force myself, and at some point it's actually gonna be easy to watch because I'm just constantly drinking it up.
Yeah. Now, I have faith in basically anything Amazon does, because the few things I've watched on Amazon.
Samaritan.
No, not Samaritan. Was that an exclusive?
Yeah.
Gross. Bad deal, Amazon. But like The Boys looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments where I'm like, but for the most part, The Boys is some of the most fun I've ever had watching TV. So this show, starting off, looks great. I thought episode 1 was fine.
Okay.
That's the word I'll use. So I think they get some things right, they get some things wrong. I did not feel like I was in a Tolkien world. It didn't capture that for me in episode 1. I cared, like the Harfoots, the hobbits.
Mm-hmm.
I hope a dragon scorches every one of them and they all die, because they're such nothing characters in this. I did not care about them. I hope that wolf or whatever it was comes and eats all their babies. I just didn't care about them. The elves. So in the Peter Jackson movies, the elves seem larger than life.
Right.
And they seem so tall through whether it's trick of the camera or just how they're filmed. There's just this otherworldly presence about them that I am not getting from this show. They just feel like those people that wear pointy ears. That you can get them at Hot Topic now. You know, there's weird people all over the world that just wear those ears now. But yeah, I felt like the jumping around to different stories, like I appreciate the map and them telling us like all this stuff, but I'm still not. I never felt like I was in Middle Earth. I never felt like I was surrounded by Tolkien. Even the way they talked was so different from the other films, and it just seemed like, I don't know, especially episode 1. I thought it was okay. I'm into the like Galadriel story, but none of the other stories do I care about. Almost at all.
I want to care about.
Yeah.
I want to care about, and I don't remember their names, but the. You know what? I literally don't even know how to explain it. The guy and lady who are in love with each other, and she's got a son, and he's trying to protect her from.
Oh, it's his son.
Oh, is it?
It's got to be. It's got to be his son.
Okay.
That kid, they've done the dirty. That's his kid. Like, you'll notice we haven't seen that kid's ears because that's going to be a big reveal later. I guarantee it. I'm calling it now.
Oh, okay.
But that actor, so bad. Was he Worm? Was he Grey Worm?
No.
I just thought he was like a bulked up Grey Worm with blue contacts.
It's a completely different person.
Okay,
So
thank God.
Arendir and Bronwyn are the couple. And so I want to care about that. But I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. You know, it was good to see an orc, I guess. But that's the other thing too. I want to make sure that people understand is that like I'm not the most like well-versed Tolkien head. Like I'm literally watching this as I wouldn't even say I'm a fan of Middle Earth. I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's about where I stop. So
Have you ever read any of the books?
No. And that's why I welcome the maps. Like if it just kind of gets me on board a little bit quicker than like the first season of say Game of Thrones. Like I want my handheld a little bit and then take me somewhere and that we're good. But here's what I'll say to echo what you said too. I am so enamored with the show that I keep watching it, but I was bored with the first episode too. And I was like, the other thing too is I felt a little like exhaustive, but like not rewarded because again, I'm thinking about the first time I watched Game of Thrones, and it was hard for me to get and understand at first. So there was just a lot going on. So I was just like burning so much energy trying to focus and trying to remember names. It's how Ernesto told me he was feeling. He had this mindset because I kind of prepped him on how confusing it could all get if you're not paying attention. And so he's just said he was burning like so much focus and energy trying to remember everything that it kind of exhausted him. And, and so I kind of went into this too, like ready, like this might be like bigger than I'm expecting. And I want to make sure I pay attention just because I don't want to miss anything. I want to love and enjoy all of it, but maybe I didn't have the best attitude going in. But I feel like Galadriel, yes, that is my way in, and I want to follow her on her journey. I want to know more about what's going on with Sauron and the Hunt and what the state of the Middle Earth is at the time and their attitudes. I feel like that's going to be the most intriguing stuff for me personally. And everything else, it's going to take some time, I feel like, for me to get in on. Because I don't even remember names. I remember Galadriel's names because she's a pre-existing character from the most popular trilogy of movies of all time. And same with Elrond. Like, that's the only reason why I know who they are. Otherwise, it's going to take me a little bit to learn everybody's story and background and things like that. So,
yeah, I mean, this show has a lot to overcome. Yes, it has a built-in audience because Tolkien, but none of these characters, other than Sauron, Galadriel, and Elrond. What did I say?
You didn't say anything yet. I was just telling.
Oh, Elrond, Sauron, and Galadriel. Other than that, these are all new characters, and those are all side characters.
Right.
And Mr. Smith isn't even playing, Elrond. So
Ned Stark is.
Right. I thought the actor who plays Elrond sucks. I don't think he's a good actor.
Young Ned Stark.
Young Ned Stark is not a good actor. At least this portrayal.
Okay. I mean, he's no Hugo Weaving. I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Well, even in like the first scene that we see him in, and then the scene with him and Galadriel, I don't know. Like, I think I'll like him the more I watch him. But like anytime I see Reek, the character who played Theon Greyjoy, I hate that person. He's a good actor, but I hate him.
Great actor.
I thought, okay. So in episode 1, so we've talked about, they've got a lot to overcome because yes, there's orcs, yes, there's Sauron and Elrond and Galadriel, but everything else is new. And based on what I've read about it, the only thing Amazon has the rights to are the trilogy, the 3 books, the 3 films, whatever. So a lot of this, they're getting some, they have the Silmarillion, but they don't have the rights to that. So they can take chances, but this is such a beloved world that they've got a big hill to overcome there because they've got to introduce new characters and they have to do cool things.
Right. Well,
but
it's this weird line to ride, It's like we of course are naturally going to compare it to Peter Jackson. And it just so happens they're following up, again, one of the greatest film trilogies of all time. So it's maybe
but even
go ahead.
Not even Peter Jackson could, have lightning strike twice.
Right.
Because the Hobbit movies are so boring that I've fallen asleep. I've never made it through all of them awake.
Well,
never.
That's the thing. It's like, I feel like if this was a franchise where we just had more iterations going into this show, then it'd be easier to swallow. Because it's like, of course, Peter Jackson's Tolkien is like the definitive Lord of the, it's where everybody's mind goes. So
yeah,
that's what we want, and like we want to hear all the cool stuff. Like, oh, Peter Jackson was totally involved with the show. He wasn't, but also at the same time, like if this was Star Trek and there were like 1,000 versions of Star Trek, and maybe that's a worse example because it doesn't really feel like Star Trek kept its old audience. It's only betrayed it, but it would just be easier to swallow if like we just saw more examples. I think, but then again, like there are people that don't like Peter Jackson's and say that he didn't do Tolkien a service, so maybe this had a chance to do Tolkien, or not do a disservice to Tolkien. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where it's like, what if we could just accept that this is just another way to tell a Middle-earth story, you know what I mean? Instead of focusing on, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong, I don't know, but what if we could just watch the show and not care that it's like Peter Jackson because it wants to do its own thing? I mean, I think your point is valid. It doesn't feel like the same Middle-earth. I think it's okay the way that, Westeros doesn't look the same in House of the Dragon as it does. I talked about the Star Wars prequels in relation to the original trilogy. Narratively, the way that it's built is that the prequels take place during what is at first peacetime. It is at the peak of the Galactic Republic. And of course, after this huge battle and the Empire takes over, that's when everything kind of looks like old and dusty and dirty when we get to the original trilogy, and it kind of makes sense. Same with House of the Dragon. Everything seems to look a little bit more pristine, but when you watch Game of Thrones, Harrenhal is a melted castle from Dragonfire, and it's like, it kind of makes sense. But this, I'm watching, and I'm looking around at everything they're showing me in Middle-earth, and it's like, I can just tell they didn't film this in New Zealand. Like,
yeah.
They could have at least filmed it in New Zealand, but then again, it's like, well, this is a different age. Different stuff is going on.
The prices in New Zealand are crazy right now. Like, a jug of milk in New Zealand is like $7.
How do you know that?
I'm guessing. I know that things in Australia and New Zealand are way more expensive than here. That's true.
Oh.
You can look it up. Like a bottle of Jack Daniels in New Zealand's like $60. Crazy. Anyway, maybe it's the cost of free healthcare. But I will say that this show, to me, it has potential. I thought episode 2 was better than episode 1. but still, it's so slow. And I know they're setting up the world. And I think the show got a lot right, like with the maps and with setting up the spaces to be believable places. I get that. They're making their own kind of thing. It doesn't feel like Jackson's Middle Earth yet. But, and because we don't have like just one central character that we care about the most, it's just hard to like buy in immediately.
Right.
Plus the dialogue, and the way people talk in episode 2 is so much better, especially when the dwarves come in. As soon as we see the dwarves, I'm like, we are in Middle Earth. Like, I believe this. The way they're talking seems way more Tolkien. I just think this show is going to have a rough road if it doesn't give us something to latch on to that's more than just Galadriel's story. Yes, I care about, I don't see, you've said their names, they're gone. The soldier elf and his woman and his child, maybe. I care about them. I want to know what happens. I don't care, like in episode 2 when that guy lands, or the end of episode 1 where the star crashes and then there's that wizard that's probably Sauron, but we don't know yet. And he kills those fireflies. Like, I'm still hoping he kills all those hobbits. Like, I could not care less, but I need people to know these hobbits are the worst hobbits, or Harfoots, whatever. But and they find those blackberry-looking things, and I can't think of a worse fruit than blackberries, because blackberries have bones, and if their blackberries are that big, those pits or bones are going to be so unedible. And so, yeah, I just hope everyone who likes blackberries chokes on their blackberry bones, because that's what it's like. It's like eating bones. But yeah, so the hobbits are out, so we have to care about the elves. I care about Elrond and New Gimli, whoever that guy is, the prince of the mountain or whatever. And that was the moment where we saw some like heart from the show.
Yeah.
Like in their interactions. And that's where I think the show, like, you can't just build Middle Earth without those kinds of moments. I think also this show struggles with the comedy. None of it has worked for me so far. Like, none of the comedic bits have held weight yet. I didn't laugh once during the show. I came the closest with the dwarves. But yeah, the show hasn't, like, and they've attempted these little like joke segues, and none of them have landed so far for me. Now, once I learned the characters better, because, once we learned Game of Thrones characters better, we liked them. But there was just a heart that the original trilogy had that this has not given me yet. Though we've gotten, step 1 of the show's heart with the Elrond and the dwarf prince. And I'm interested to see where that goes, but that's what they have to have more of. Because we didn't care about hobbits, we cared about Frodo Baggins. We didn't care about hobbits, we cared about Pippin and Merry and Sam, because those characters had heart and were interesting. None of the other characters so far, other than Galadriel, have that. Right. Maybe Elrond and the dwarf like we talked about, but that's it.
But even like Galadriel, she, the actress's name is Morfydd Clark. I don't think even her character is like jumping out at me. I just am responding to her story more. And I mean, she's just so obviously like front and center, and she does some cool stuff. And again, I already have a relationship with that character based on the original show. Like, I think those are all cheat codes, but it's not like I think she was like incredibly like leaping off the screen, like screaming at me to watch. Like, it's not something I'm involved in because like the show is like crushing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So, I do feel like you know more about Lord of the Rings than I do. So, I think another easy way to kind of compare this to the original trilogy, is the fact that it does start off with a prologue, and that's one way that we could have felt like we were back in Middle Earth. And of course, talking about Sauron and everything takes me back. But at the same time, I kind of wish the story was about Morgoth, because they started
He's
off
dead.
Well, that's the thing. I wish it was that story, though, is my point.
But we're getting Sauron, the beginning of Sauron's rise to power. That'll be cool.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, it kind of showed me something at the beginning. It brought me in by teaching me about a story and a character I didn't know anything about. And then Kai botched it, and then it became like the Sauron prequel. And it's like, what if it's still in the Second Age, what if it was just more Goth being the villain, and then we lead up to Sauron? Like, that's kind of what was on my mind, especially because I was bored by everything else. And I'm, like you said, I'm still open to the fact that maybe the beginnings of Sauron and all that kind of stuff. Beginnings, it's kind of like midlife for him. But I guess. But it could be interesting. But they told me a story, and I was kind of like, why wouldn't they just do that?
I think the storytelling so far is fine. I think you're right that it's the characters that they haven't developed. Like, I need to know who these characters are more so than, this person is, like they're taking shortcuts with, her brother's dead. We know who Galadriel and Elrond are, but they're not giving us the heart. They're not giving us a Tyrion Lannister. They're not. They're just missing the character piece right now, because if any of these characters died, which, I mean, it's Tolkien, so maybe one will, but this isn't, George R.R. Martin. So these characters are going to be sticking around. I just need to know more about, I need to see more of them and less about, it can't just all be narrative. I need some character development.
And it was also a decision to release both of these episodes at the same time, and that's what's so disappointing. Is that I feel the same about both, even though I do agree the second one was better. But I kind of feel the same way about both. Is that I was just kind of involved in the visual storytelling, but bored by everything else, and that sucks. I mean, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal if it was just the first episode and then the second episode was just off the charts. But it was just kind of I don't want to say it fell flat, because I don't know. Did it fall flat?
No, I don't think so. And I think we need to be careful, because we both thought Castle Rock was going to be an amazing show, and we know what happened there. I think I'm really interested to see how this develops. Am I a little underwhelmed? Yes. Do I think they've gotten some things right? Yeah. But I'm afraid there's a sneaking suspicion that this is going to overall be a disappointment. I hope I'm wrong, because I've been wrong thinking things were going to be great and then they weren't. So I'm ready to give this show more. But if by episode 4 or 5 it still feels like it does right now, I'll be out. But just given the amount of work that's went into this, the prestige of the Tolkien world building, maybe these first 2 episodes are just world setting episodes, and the character stuff comes later. Because I think that happened in Game of Thrones too. Because when Bran fell from that window, I didn't care. It's just a kid. Get away from the window. But incest was involved, and we were like, that's gross. So that's something.
One thing that I think about, the first conversation between, I think it's the first conversation between Baelish and Varys in the throne room, and it's just them two, and they're kind of going back and forth. He's giving them shit for being a eunuch, and they're talking about their spiders and their networks and talking about power, whatever. And I remember listening to this conversation, and it was really kind of the first time I didn't know anything about either one of them. Like, I was still trying to figure them out, but I was still compelled, and interested in learning more. And I don't know that I feel that way about any of these characters yet. Like,
Yeah.
like
Well,
where I'm like willing to go with them despite not knowing much.
we have now lived in a world, though. I mean, when did Game of Thrones come out? 10 years ago?
Something like that.
So we have seen high fantasy done so well on TV in the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. And so we are maybe unfairly comparing it, but maybe pretty fairly. Like, Game of Thrones set the bar for what high fantasy could be. And then we got things like The Witcher, which were good, I thought. It was fine. But it was more of a Xena Warrior Princess vibe than Game of Thrones. They're different shows. They went for different targets. But this is going to get compared to those fairly or unfairly because we live in a world where the other exists.
I think it's extremely fair, actually.
Yeah.
Because you and I are literally just talking about character work and storytelling. Like, it's not
That's
like
right.
it's not like you and I are both sitting here like, we need to see more C-sections, and we need to see more blood and guts, and we need to see more
Right.
character deaths, like things that like inherently make Game of Thrones. But just like wanting to like latch on to characters. I mean, we can compare it to any show, really. I mean, Game of Thrones
Yeah,
is the
that's
easier
fair, too.
one, but I mean, I think that's fair game. It's not we don't want it to become Game of Thrones. We just want to care. So,
Right. Well, so I'll put it with like The Boys. I went into The Boys not knowing any of the world that was set in. But I cared about the characters. And
Right.
so because of that, I grew to learn more about the world. Now, what this is flipped that. We know almost nothing about the characters and the character building. We just know about the world.
Right.
But in its defense, the world has been around for so long that they are really trying to set us in this world, even though it feels different, but we're lacking that character to latch onto and to root for. And honestly, the only character I'm really rooting for right now is Galadriel, and that's kind of hit a snag because they're in open water, and she made the dumbest decision of all time, jumping out of a boat in the middle of an ocean across the sea. Like, when she jumped out of that boat and I knew she was about to, I was like, you are the dumbest person in the history of the world. It doesn't matter how cool or tough you think you are. I've seen the movie Deep Blue Sea, and I know what happens in open water. So, yeah.
The last thing I want to mention, because I just learned this right before we sat down, because again, I haven't really been like, I've been excited to watch the show for the just TV reasons, but didn't know a whole lot about it going into it. I'm just now realizing that the showrunners, Patrick McKay and John D. Payne, this is their first credit on IMDb. They've never produced or written anything before this show. And I'm not saying they can't make one of the best fantasy shows of all time, but I cannot believe I'm just now learning and realizing that they did not get TV vets or TV.
Had Benioff and Weiss done anything?
You know, it's crazy they hadn't.
So there you go.
Well, but hold on, let me rephrase. They had credits. They had done writing in Hollywood. I think it was their first series show running. So I think it was their first TV series, but they had still written things and worked in Hollywood. For Lord of the Rings, this is literally their first credit on their entire IMDb. And I'm not...
So I wonder who they're sleeping with.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different situation than Benioff and Weiss, but I can see why you would make that comparison. Anything else? Should we come back next week and talk episode 3 and then see how we feel?
I think we have to. I think we have to give this 4 episodes.
All right, that'll be half the season because there's 8. So
okay, let's give it halfway. Let's make
Okay.
that promise, and then at the end of the 4th, let's decide.
But I think I'm with you. I think this is a Westworld situation where I'm gonna fight tooth and nail, but I will watch this entire first season despite not knowing how I feel about it.
Okay.
That's what it's like. I'm comparing this to Westworld right now.
But you hate Westworld.
I hate Westworld because I was taught to hate it. Eventually, but we'll see. This might make a turnaround. I think that'll be the end of this conversation and podcast.
Yeah, and notice we didn't even talk about Indian film once.
Unfortunately, I mean, and it's funny too because God bless him. Why did I say that? I don't say that.
God bless them.
I never say that.
You're so good looking.
I'm posting, my She-Hulk stuff and just other videos, Samaritan and getting comments about Tollywood on those videos. I'm like,
that's right.
Stay on target, guys. We're not talking about Tollywood right here. But I mean, I get all the recommendations, and someone. I woke up this morning and someone prompted me to watch this movie next week, so I might go see it. I might go see a movie in theaters next week. That's
you know what the world needs is more white people talking about Indian filmmaking.
Right. That's right. Anyway, Brando, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Ryan, I just love you.
I love you too.
Oh, that's sweet.
Where can the people find you online? Anywhere?
Find me on Instagram at Brando Big Mouth.
Find me, guys, on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, WhatsApp at Rewatch Ryan. Again, go pick up a 30-day free trial of Audible. Scan this QR code right here, or the link is in the description down below, guys. If you're listening on a podcast, audibletrial.com/rewatch. It is the absolute best way to support me and this podcast, but not really Brando. Guys,
that's right.
Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.